Good morning, PlayStation Universe, and welcome to episode 45 of PlayStation Fix. My name is Will Robinson, and joining me, as always, is senior editor Kyle Prawl.
Cheers, sir. Good morning.
Cheers. Good morning. Uh,
Don't know
would
how effective the cheers can be
Yeah, I was
with
gonna say
coffee,
digital
but
clinking our coffee mugs.
yeah, it's a thing. I've got a thermos though. Mine's
Oh,
got a rubber matte exterior, so I don't know if it would make the same satisfying clink you're looking for.
I've actually got a. I realize that my mug is actually related to one of the topics I'm going to be talking about in a little bit, but uh, as we decided, well, before we dive into it,
I have an idea now because
huh?
I know of a video game mug that you own. So
I own
I
well,
feel
I own several ones, but yes,
all right, fair enough,
we'll
fair
see.
enough.
But yeah, before we dive into things, just to clarify our format, if you missed the last couple podcasts, what we're doing now is uh, two of us pick a few different articles that interested us personally throughout the week. We bring them in blind to each other, and then we just pitch it, talk about it for about 15 minutes, and move on to the next one. So we decided before the recording started that Kyle will begin our topic this week.
Oh yeah, I mean it's nice because this gives us a chance to talk about the things that we care about
Mm-hmm.
in a week's worth of video game news. And with that in mind, I'm here to tell you, Will, that you'll be waiting a bit longer for Persona 5 than you thought you
That
were.
was my first topic.
I thought it might be.
That is what my mug is.
I'm
Yeah.
like in this week of video game news, I'm like, there's no way that Will didn't see this,
Yeah.
and that he isn't also going to want to react to it.
Yeah.
So,
That
hooray,
was
our first
God.
match.
Yeah, I was looking through articles trying to find it, and I was like, oh, that'd be good. And then I looked and I just went, son of a bitch. And I was just like,
No,
as,
for real. So I've got the official announcement on the PlayStation blog pulled up. I'll just read pieces of it
okay.
to catch up people on what's going on. Brace yourselves, says Atlas's John Harden. Persona 5 is now launching on April 4th. That's April Fool's Day. All right, no,
No,
April.
April 1st is Fool's Day. April 4th is.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
April 4th, 2017. I know, it stings, but Persona 5 set the gold standard for Atlas with its launch in Japan, and we wanted to put the utmost care into ensuring it winds up the best when it launches in the West. And this is a very special we have some exceedingly good news for you in light of this delay. Persona 5 will have dual audio for PS4 and PS3. We're introducing it as DLC for logistical reasons, but it will be free forever. People have been asking for this since Persona 5 was announced, and through Herculean effort from just about every division of Atlas, we managed to arrange this. So he goes on to discuss a few, kind of positives to try to mitigate the bad news, but essentially, Persona 5 will get a 2 month delay. It's not abundantly clear why that is, but most people think it's just localization is taking longer than they thought it would, which wouldn't surprise me given how massive these games are and how high quality Atlas's localizations are known for being. I mean, Persona 4 in English, it almost feels like it was made in English,
Yeah,
which is
for
the
sure.
surest sign that you did it right. So they just do such a great job handling cultural references and idioms that need to be brought over to English. So, but the benefit is you'll be able to play with either Japanese or English audio, which was not originally planned. There will be a playable demo at PSX in a couple weeks. There will
Mhm.
be, well, it's gone now, but there was a free Persona 5 theme on PSN for like a day there.
Oh, I didn't know
And
that. Damn it.
and finally, they revealed the official artwork for the deluxe edition, which I think you pre-ordered that as well during E3, right? Well, when
Yes, I
they
did
knocked the price
pre-order.
down.
That's what I was hoping this delay wouldn't screw any of that up, because I was like,
No, yeah, we'll still get that. God, I can't believe that price. That's just insane.
hmm
But yeah, so obviously we don't have the visual here while we're talking, but they did reveal the art book of the steel book. It's kind of one of the pieces has the two girls from the Velvet Room on it, and the other has like the 8 members of the cast sort of spread across the cover if you open it up and look at it horizontally. So it looks nice. It's great artwork as always, but yeah. So obviously this news sucks, but I thought there was a chance to turn it into a slightly bigger conversation about the pre-release promises, because one thing that kind of was what made this humorous. I think a lot of Persona fans took this in stride, and the anger wasn't as crazy as I maybe thought it would be.
hmm
But a lot of people were joking by putting like this April 4th, 2017 date, like a picture of it, next to Winter 2014, which was the first key art that was
Yep.
released like 4 years ago of like the four chairs against the red background. It was literally Winter 2014 for PS3.
Yeah, that's what I had the dates. That's what I was doing before we started. Was I opened
Oh,
up the
really?
Persona
You're
5. That was
focused.
what I was writing all the dates down for on I opened the Persona 5 wiki and all the times that it's been announced to be released. First, it was said PS3 was September 1st, 2014, is what they were initially promising or going for. Uh,
Initially aiming for, yeah.
and then it got delayed when they changed it to PS4, and that was going to be PS4's 2015. Then it got moved to Q3 2016, and then it got detailed to be instead May 2016, and then it got released in Japan on September 15th of this year in 2016.
We were
Then it
told
was
Valentine's
announced,
Day.
yeah, then the US version was given February 14th, 2017 release date, and then now it's April 4th, 2017. So
Well, so
it's
what's weird about the way I'm vibing here is that I for some reason I'm not as bothered by the Persona 5 debacle as I am by like FF15 or some
oh
other
yeah, I'm
blade.
not the
So
quality doesn't isn't gonna worry me at all. Like,
yeah, it's like I guess my topic then is kind of like when is it excusable for a developer to put a date out there that's so impossible and so early, and when is it not excusable? Because I think there are examples of both, like where
mhm.
developers kind of irresponsibly promise a release date and then they lose customer goodwill by it being pushed out multiple years, and then there are cases where I feel like we kind of get where they're coming from and we excuse it. Or, maybe the alternative is let's just stop
Mhm.
giving dates until we're in the final cycle of development. Like let's just stop. So I guess I wanted to get your take on that. Like where does Persona stand in that landscape, and what's the right way to handle the
Well,
pre-release hype?
well, I think that relates more to like a general industry consciousness of the developers individually, whereas like Final Fantasy, so Atlas with Persona 5, they're coming off of the essentially from the majority of people, majority of gamers that know about them, they're coming off of the remaster slash remake of Persona 4 coming to
Yeah.
Vita, which really by all standards is considered the greatest Vita game that's been made on the system for a lot of players.
hmm
So
It's my
they're
my
yeah,
favorite JRPG ever.
right. So they're in a lot of they're standing in the good graces of the vast majority of gamers who have tried their games. So it's like they have some leeway where I think people aren't worried, and there hasn't been anything in the news that we know of really about major transitions in power within the company or project changes or leads changing
Mhm.
on the projects and things like that. Whereas with Final Fantasy, a lot of people were just blatantly unhappy with the direction of 13 and the subsequent games.
Mm.
So
Yeah,
that
that's
was not
fair. I
at all
mean,
what they wanted. We knew that there was turmoil within the company in a number of different ways where the creative teams didn't want to keep going backwards and doing games that have already come out and the ones that people love. They wanted to set their own standard. They wanted to be their own creative team, make something that they can be proud of. And there was also a lot of change with power in the higher ups in management and like over the last few years, and we know a lot of things about their standards in general for game sales were just completely skewed.
yeah.
Whereas like Tomb Raider sold what? It's like I can't even remember. It was like
Oh yeah,
almost
something
10
like
million copies. It was millions of copies, and but that didn't hit the benchmark that they wanted, so it was a failure. And
Mhm.
it was like just random things like that. So I think we have more of an understanding of we have a more of a view of Square Enix having gone through a lot of trouble, and meaning that can correlate to making the games that they produce being lower quality. Whereas Atlas, it's just more like we have no reason to believe that the development team is compromised in any way. So
That's
therefore,
yeah.
this period of time is they just want to make sure it's as good as it possibly can be, and maybe like in 2015 they went, hey, we can make this a lot better, or this is not where we want it to be because we know what we want it to be. So
Yeah, I think as I follow along with that thread there, the word that keeps popping into my mind is sometimes release date delays can feel malicious as a fan, and
yeah.
they never are. A company is never trying to be like, "Fuck you, fans. Now you got to wait." But I think like as fans, and the Square Enix example is a perfect one. When you've got this cascading effect of just various disappointments over the years, whether it was the Versus 13 being amidst this 13 debacle that very few people really loved. The delays, the direction of it being action instead of turn based, the fact that Square was already developing a reputation for hubris and for favoring graphics and cinematics over gameplay. All that sort of bills and stews below the surface so that when they announce a release date, it almost reinforces our belief that they don't care.
Yeah.
Or that it's just like here's another example.
They've
They
got
don't
their
care.
agenda.
Yeah,
And
they've
that's
got
what
their
they're gonna
agenda.
do.
They don't know how to make a game that we want. They don't care that we've been waiting so long. Whereas with Atlas, we've never had cause to hate them for any reason whatsoever.
Yeah.
They mostly just operate behind the scenes and give us occasional glimpses of their games, and
Yeah.
maybe they're guilty of teasing it a little earlier than they should have. But that's such a small crime compared to just years of customer ill will. FF14 helped in that ecosystem, but there's plenty of people that don't play that, and so there's plenty that still feel burned by
Yeah.
just this is going for years. This has been going in directions that I didn't want to see it go in, and it's clear that Square doesn't care anymore. So
Yeah.
I hear you. I feel like that's, at least in this particular example, that's probably a big part of the emotions.
Yeah, well, the Atlas has never been. There's never been reason for Atlas to become the butt of a joke on the industry. And
Right.
Square Enix has plenty of times by a lot of different people. It's one of those names that you always just reach for. Same with like EA and things like that, where it's like there have been consistent issues either with games or with decisions from that company that have had lasting effects on the consciousness of gamers and the industry. So there's never been an opportunity for ill will other than them delaying their games as far as Atlas is concerned. So and every time their games have come out recent, at least in the last few years, or with Persona 4 Golden, which is really the main exposure of I think most gamers out there right now that are excited for Persona 4 or 5. There isn't any reason to doubt that it's not going to be up to that same standard.
Right, exactly,
So
because we already know like the battle system. It's Atlas doesn't. It's weird. Atlas changes its story. Atlas changes its characters.
Yep.
Final Fantasy changes everything every time. So to some extent, they're built in different ways too. Like Square Enix just sort of runs that risk of there will be people disappointed every time because this game isn't like the Final Fantasy that they grew up with. Whatever one that is. Like that could be Final Fantasy 1 and 2, or it could be 9 and 10. So but I guess to speak about the broader industry, it's my personal stance, and I think it's not really a risky stance. I think everyone's kind of coming around to this, is that don't make promises you can't keep, because all it's doing is establishing ill will. And I, as a gamer, don't want to feel like you've given me a date that's 2 years from now, and there's no way that a developer could accurately. There's no way you can stick the landing when you throw a date out there that has yet to even materialize. Like when if it's today and I say, "Will, look forward to playing my game in September 2020," that date means nothing to you.
No.
It's just a bold-faced lie. It's just something to make the trailer a little more compelling.
Right.
And
it's a great trajectory
totally
to have.
Meaningless.
Internally, it's a great goal to set. But
Sure.
don't announce that publicly and get people, because I mean, like, I'm not worried about Persona 5 being great, because I mean that's why I pre-ordered it, partly because the deal was also stupidly good. But I mean, like I said, I'm not there at the beginning where when I saw the headline that it got delayed again. I'm not happy about it. I've been talking to you about this too, or the games that are going to be coming out in the next few months, and that was one that I kept mentioning, was that I'm really looking forward to this game, and it's only a couple months away. Now it's a couple more months away, and that's like, well, all it does is create just disappointment. And it's like that's
Yeah,
not going to
no
be a
doubt.
lasting thing. Obviously, like I'm not going to be thinking about that in 6 months after I've played the game, and it's like that's not going to be anything in my mind when I think about Atlas going forward. But it's disappointing. Like it just straight up
I
is.
gotta I gotta wonder if pre-order culture is what leads to announcing dates so early, because
Oh, for sure.
there might be internal research that says pre-orders spike when there is a date that people believe in. Like you can pre-order something before a date is live, but it's probably like when the date is announced that people really start to think, okay, great, now I'll pre-order because there's a date.
Hmm.
But even, I mean, despite that, I can't imagine, what's the difference? It's like if you announce that date and then 6 months later you have to push the date back, aren't people canceling? Because they're like, well, now all of a sudden I'm not confident in this.
All right.
Like all of a sudden,
Or are they
like
canceling, or are they
what's
getting more people because it's in a headline again that hasn't
yeah,
been in the
you
news recently?
you
So people
you
see it and they're like, "Oh, it's coming out," and then they go
no
and
doubt.
pre-order.
I think it just confuses the messaging. I think
Yeah.
like there's a far greater you could feel far more confident in this strategy, which is to let scarcity and let silence speak for yourself when it comes to the game. Like, if all we knew about Persona leading up to now, and frankly, we don't know much more than this because they've done a
Hmm.
great job withholding information, but if all we had was just like a couple screenshots every other month, just like a very slow rollout, and then all of a sudden, 3 minute trailer, developer interviews, here's the English voice cast, here's all the pre-order editions, and it's coming out in 4 months. I feel like that because you've let hype stew under the surface. You've let people fill in blanks with their own imagination about what this game will be.
Hmm.
You let silence or you let the lack of information
Yeah.
become encouragement on its own, become a space where people can get excited. And so
Hmm.
I just obviously I'm not sitting here with marketing research and the data to back it up, but I feel like that massive wave of pre-orders, that massive wave of excitement 4 months prior when you've got a date that you're really, really confident in, I just think that's so much better for the brand and for your product.
Yeah. It's it's still. I don't think anything is going to beat in terms of what most people think of for announcements. It's not going to beat Bethesda announcing Fallout. What was it, like 4 months, 5 months? It's four
Yeah, it
months,
wasn't
I think,
much. Yeah.
from when it announced at E3 to when it came out. I was like that. I think that's a standard that most people can get used to.
Yes, absolutely.
You can let speculation and stuff stew in the general public for a while with like really subtle hints, and or if people, because I mean, everybody's going to start, if you have a game that you want people to be excited for, and it's an established franchise or anything like that, like with Fallout, constantly whenever somebody from Bethesda got interviewed about anything, there was always a question on Fallout, and the answer responses are always vague enough to where it made people absolutely sure that this game was going to be coming out at some point. So the excitement
Yes.
was stewing. So as
And you
soon as
didn't even
that
have to
dropped,
do anything to
yeah,
stir it. I mean, that's the thing. When you're a company that people trust and a product that people love, they will hype it for you until that fateful date, which for
hmm,
Bethesda was at E3, comes, and you can surprise everybody. And now all of a sudden, you've condensed that. What formerly would have taken like let's imagine this, right? FF15 has been getting news stories now for 2 years or 3 years actually. So for 3 years, like once a month or twice a month, whatever, there's been some new little there's been some new director quote, like a little trailer here, a little random detail pulled from an interview there. Like it's just never ending. And I
hmm,
think that has the tendency to morph in ways that the company doesn't want it to, and it has the tendency to burn people out. But if you have a 4 month lead time or a 5 month lead time with Fallout 4 dominated headlines from that announcement to its release, and it
hmm,
sold incredibly well
yeah.
and had a ton of goodwill behind it. And because it was packed into 5 months of messaging, Bethesda could, to some extent, not only dominate headlines but sort of control them because every week they had something new to share, and then that was the story. That was the story. Um, it's just on so
Yeah.
many levels, it makes so much more intuitive sense to
And
me.
obviously, something like Fallout is much more established in the Western market than something like Persona 5, but
Yeah,
I
for
think
sure.
that the spirit translates the same way in a lot of ways for that. But And I think that's what since we keep going back to Square, I think it's even though something that was done completely opposite of that, what we're talking about right now, was them announcing that Final Fantasy VII Remake is happening. And that is something I think they did that. That is a special case where I think it was smart because it's something that people have been wanting for years and years and years. So they've basically had something that they could show, whether how much of it we don't know was done at the time, really. But they showed something, and then they've basically completely stopped talking about it. Like it's not in headlines. They're not making really just micro announcements along the way to perpetuate just a really low stagnant conversation.
Mm-hmm.
They're building suspense right now with what they're doing,
Yes.
and they're focusing on the game so that when that affirmation comes again that hey, we're this much closer or it's almost here, they're going to get that giant response that they want. So I think that's there. Obviously, case by case basis for different projects that are being worked on, but I think that was a good exception to kind of what we're talking about right now, where it made people know that this is happening and not just people hoping for something to happen and just dismissing
Sure.
it as a thing. But now it's defined itself in the minds of gamers as being an actual thing that's going to happen. And then that, like we're saying, is everybody's going to be perpetuating that excitement on their own. They don't need headlines because they've got so much history to pull from with the original game and speculation that they can make themselves and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, should we move on to the next one?
Feel free.
Okay.
I'm sorry I stole your topic.
No, that's all right. I always make sure I have at least one extra one in case such instances happen. The next one actually that I want to talk about actually follows in somewhat well to what we're talking about. Is Red Dead Redemption 2 details that we got talked about. Basically, they're saying confirming that it's going to have incredible depth, like narrative, incredible emotional depth and stuff.
I did see that quote. I was like, all right, sounds good, Rockstar.
Yeah,
I didn't expect you to say the opposite.
Yeah, no
Our
kidding.
game will be so shallow.
Yeah,
so shallow you can't swim in it.
Yeah,
Please
I mean,
there
isn't a ton of meat in this detail thing, but I just thought it was interesting to try to be talking about now and saying about how it being a big, sprawling, optimistic view of America. So it's basically it's like the other side of the coin of the previous game, where it was like the decline of the frontier in the United States, and it was in 1911, I think is what I saw, is when that time period was. And we did get to see a trailer that, didn't really show us much at all. Scenes that you would expect when you hear Red Dead Redemption type of game, or it's just different parts of the wilderness and train moving through a field of bison and all that stuff. But I really liked the explanation that they gave for the pacing of this. Let's see, this is Zelnick is his last name. I don't remember who he is. I can't write his first name down anywhere.
Oh, Strauss Zelnick?
Strauss, that's what it is. Yeah, I couldn't remember what it was. But he's explaining the reasoning behind such a big gap, really, in terms of them wanting to talk about this or having this game come out. So I just read that off, and then we can spitball from there. So he said the conventional wisdom was, of course, that a Western wouldn't work. This is what he said of the original game. We took a different point of view, which is that very occasionally Westerns captured the imagination of the public. When we launched Red Dead, it did. And those times are right for that. And I think that times are right for a big, sprawling, optimistic view of America again. And that's not meant to be cute. So you can expect... it says Red Dead Redemption 2 will offer incredible emotional depth, adding that you can expect there to be a great story elements and great gameplay elements, which, gameplay you'd expect, story you were hoping for, but that's just great to see that's going to be happening. But I was trying to picture in my head what this means and how much, since this is, we haven't gotten any kind of final details on the time period, like the time that's lapsed between the first and second, as far as I know. Was there anything I don't know if you've heard anything?
No, that's totally up in the air. In fact, we really don't. I'm not sure that it's even confirmed that it is a sequel. Like, I don't know that we actually know whether it comes before or after the game.
I believe it was after, because it would be the uh, being well. I mean, this would be after like the optimistic view of America, like what they were talking about. Is what I believed it was.
Hmm,
He calls it a sequel in different
okay,
things like
if he
that.
calls it a sequel, then that's well, that's although that's tough because you have obviously it is a numerical sequel, but is it? Well, anyway, no, I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't think that we know the time frame.
So the thing that I was trying to think of is that if this is the first game was in 1911, I mean, it would make sense in my mind that it would be following after that and moving forward towards the more prosperous America, moving into the 1920s and things like that. But will it reserve itself to the frontier that is still there to be explored? Will there be a lot more interaction between different cities, or like what is the setting going to be?
Yeah,
Like, is it going to be in
I
the
w-
south near the Mexico border and stuff like it was before, or is it going to be more towards the Midwest? Would you be going to things like would you be going into like a 1920s Chicago area? Would you be going, like things like that, where you have more of an interplay between where he has to like begrudgingly go into the city and he makes all these comments about the city folk and all, that just the cliche kind
yeah.
of things like that, which would be really funny. And but it would also be really cool to see those worlds, that universe come to life too, or seeing that historical moment in time, what they would do with it. So I don't know. It's
I
all
think
speculation at this point. I just wanted to hear what you think.
yeah. No, I like the cities popped into my mind off the bat because I think like Red Dead Redemption already nailed the open frontier, open
Mm-hmm.
landscape kind of vibe. I mean, really the bulk of that game's world was desert, forest, open plains. There wasn't much in the way of a detailed, meaningfully meaty city. And I mean, you had cities of varying sizes, but I think that's one way that they could innovate in the game is to pack a smallish. Certainly, I don't think it makes sense. It doesn't make historical sense to have a city like the size of Los Santos or anything like that. But I just mean something where feasibly, yeah, here's where a few thousand people live, and you can enter a lot of buildings, and there's a lot of side quests just within the politics of the city. I also think obviously that's interesting from a gameplay perspective because it's refreshing next to the open plains, but it also gives you the chance to sort of set these two viewpoints against each other. Like, if this is post optimistic America, well, even post optimistic America, there are people left behind out in the plains, out in the desert. And so doing missions rather for both of those sides
Mm-hmm.
just could reveal something interesting about the world. Like, this is how people in the city view America at this moment, and this is how people out still fighting for their lives among the wilderness feel about America at this moment, and they're gonna just have very different flavors, I think.
Yeah, that's there's so many different things that I would want to see happen in this game that but I don't see, like the trailer that we saw. They didn't do anything that was different. We didn't see anything that indicates that they're going to go any kind of different route, which I'm sure is intentional. Whether they are or aren't, they wanted to show that. Look at how great this world looks in a new Red Dead Redemption format, or like on a new system, and like how beautiful the world. Because they didn't show anything except nature scenes, and then there were a few guys on horses riding towards the camera, and then it kind of changed, So there wasn't anything except just confirming the existence of the game at
Yeah.
this point.
And to be honest, I didn't think that that trailer was a great showing for the game either
No,
because yeah, it just like you said reinforced that okay, this is exactly what we thought it
yeah,
was then.
and there was
Um,
like one line that somebody said at the end of the trailer, and that was like, okay, yeah, like there wasn't anything that indicated any type of story, any setup, anything that we know what the what it's about, if any, like the Marston family is relevant at all, which I would assume that they aren't going to be. I would think that this is going to take place in a different area of the country from where it was before.
I have to think so, if only to give that different atmosphere, that different perspective, like we were talking about with the cities.
Right.
Um,
So
I
then,
almost
like, what would you think for the character
jeez.
setup entirely? Because John Marston was basically he was like a wasn't he? He was like a mercenary before. essentially, wasn't he? I'm trying to remember this. It's been so long.
I don't know that he like. I never really
Because
attributed
he
like a
killed a lot
career
of
path to
people,
him.
and then he was like
Yeah,
trying
yeah.
not to do that, and then he got strung into it again. People are like, "Oh, you're really good at this, so we want you to do this stuff." And I'm trying to remember what the setup for that. But like, I think it would be pretty cool to start in a city, being with a specific gang of some kind that was there, established in one of the cities. Some shit goes down, and then you have to go on the run, and then you're out in the wilderness and you're trying to like survive out that way. And then like that would be a great way to kind of reestablishing some of the skills that you have, or like encountering really interesting people. I don't know. That's just kind of where my mind went to.
Gosh, yeah. There's just so much we don't know still. I mean, I'm sitting over here thinking like I want the game to. I want. This feels so weird for me to say because this is not who I am as a gamer, really.
Mm.
But I'm really like now that like all right, GTA Online, right, is now the main reason people still play GTA 5, and it's arguably one of the big reasons why the game continues to sell as well as it does. I mean, I don't want to get the number wrong. I'm just searching here. Okay, so Grand Theft Auto 5, as of November 2nd of this year, has sold 70 million copies. So
my
it's
God.
scheme. So I mean, in the scheme of like top blockbuster sales, what's a banner day for any blockbuster really is we're talking in the mid single digit millions. I mean,
Right.
a $6 million $7 copy sold, like that's a huge success that we talk about in press releases.
Yeah, and just to put that in perspective, I looked up Mass Effect 3 earlier today just to see for sales, and it was 3.5 million copies sold, and that grossed $200 million.
So when we
200
talk-
million for 3.5,
Yeah.
so extrapolate that to 70 million.
basically Rockstar can do whatever they want.
Yeah,
forever.
they control the world. It's just that's how it goes.
2K is just swimming in it at this point.
Oh,
But the bottom line though is that a lot of those long tail sales that are still happening to this day are being driven by GTA Online because that has reached a point where it's so fully featured. There are so many game modes, so many DLC cosmetic items, holiday items, things to upgrade your cars, your apartments. Like there's a really burgeoning ecosystem beneath the surface there. And I think although it wasn't ready for prime time at launch, I think it did finally evolve into what Rockstar wanted it to be, like this shared multiplayer experience where you feel a lot of investment in your character, and you've got players now with hundreds of millions of in-game dollars just owning the city, right?
Yeah.
So I want to, and again, this is weird for me and my taste as a gamer, but I am very curious to see what their solution to that looks like with Red Dead, because Red Dead's multiplayer was really just an evolved version of GTA 4, which was like you could load into the landscape and free roam.
Yeah.
You know, you'd occasionally match with some people. There were some co-op missions where you raid bandit hideouts, but I mean, nothing that really differentiated itself from things that other games had done.
Yeah.
So what does GTA Online look like in a Red Dead Old West sense? Like, can you establish businesses? Can you build up? Can you own? Because like that's where I think like it's like, GTA 5 is all about American excess and American wealth, and so it makes sense that one of the end game goals for players would be how extravagant of an apartment and how many luxury cars can you own. So I'm curious about like what that looks like for Red Dead when there wasn't such material wealth so present in the Old West.
How many
cities.
cows you can get?
Yeah, or like I mean no, but yeah, like what kind of farm can you
There'd
establish?
be a lot of gold mining.
Right? Can you, maybe you make a ton of money by guarding or escorting some goods across a state and
Establishing
other
casinos.
places. Yeah, no doubt.
That'd be
Oh, that
cool.
would be a cool angle that actually.
Because it says they have said that they are, or that it will include a big online environment like GTA Online. So they are shooting for this, and I'm sure they put a ton of effort into figuring out how to make that happen the best. But yeah, it's like it's something that's almost impossible to. I don't think we'll actually be able to understand what it's going to be until it comes out.
Yeah, they'll tell us about it, and then oh yeah, even then it might not. It'll morph into something
Yeah,
different.
you
Like
just have
get
to
their
try
hands
it.
on it.
Yeah, so it'll be. It's there's just so much. There's so much to actually be excited for this. I think is that,
I think so. Yeah.
and kind of going back to our starting conversation, it was like Rockstar doesn't. Well, this game is. Well, they did a good thing where they didn't formally announce this until like not that long ago this year, and it's projected to come out fall next year, and I feel like that's a pretty safe bet considering Rockstar. I don't think
Mhm.
there'll probably be some minor delays, I'd imagine, once they do actually set a date, or if they just keep it really vague with the fall. But I mean, honestly, I would expect a game of that size, something will probably go wrong on the process line, and it'll be delayed until maybe early 2018. But in terms of content and story and gameplay and stuff, it's just like there's no reason for me to feel worried about this in any aspect.
No, not at all. I mean, Rockstar has just earned that
Yeah.
confidence and trust, maybe even more than Atlas at this point. With Atlas, we only have one
Hmm.
example of a fantastic game.
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, for others, who have played the whole series, they have more, but like you and I, it's all grounded in Persona 4. With
Yeah.
Rockstar lately, it's been Red Dead, phenomenal. GTA
Hmm.
5, phenomenal. And even
Hmm.
you can go back further than that, like GTA 4 doesn't hold up well today, but it was phenomenal for its time, as
Yeah.
was San Andreas and Vice City. So, yeah, there's no concern whatsoever from my
Right.
camp.
And just even the level of creativity on the team for expanding within a specific environment like that with like Undead Nightmare is still like one of the easily still probably the best DLC of any game that I've played, at least in the top 5 for sure.
Hmm.
And just what they were able to do, the humor that they threw in with that, the unique things, even within a contained world where they were able to do pull elements like in MMO communities or games in that environment where it was like what was it? You had the horses of the apocalypse and things, where it's like you could find ones randomly in the environment at certain points in time, or like, they were able to throw in all these really unique mechanics together into one isolated experience that felt much bigger than it actually was. And they just do such a great job of they do a great job of just using the tools that they have in the biggest possible way that they can, or in
Mm.
taking full advantage of them. So I honestly can't wait to see what this is going to look like, especially since it's coming out after the current generations of systems have been out for a couple of years. So
Yeah,
they've had a good amount of time to stress
just
test and push things and make it look and feel as good as it possibly can be, really.
yeah, and on think about the upgraded consoles as well, Project Scorpio
Yep.
and PS4 Pro. Like those will have been out for a couple years themselves. So
Hmm.
people will have learned, and Rockstar better than anyone will have learned how to take advantage of
Oh yeah.
that power. So yeah, I'm certainly excited. I'm kind of thinking it'd be cool to have like I think of Bloodborne actually for like or maybe Watch Dogs would be a better analog where people can enter your world and enter your game. Like I don't want to play Red Dead in a shared universe, but I wouldn't mind occasionally like being on a mission of my own, like escorting a merchant a wagon across the
Sure.
country, and then another player in their game has accepted a quest to blow up you like
Hmm.
this is literally how it could play out. Like you would be in a town and accept a quest from an NPC to stop that merchant wagon because we can rob it and blow it up or take all its loot. And I have accepted the counterpoint in my universe, and because we've done that at very similar time points to each other,
Yeah.
all of a sudden we're facing off against each other. Like that's the smart way to like
That
bridge
would be
these
cool.
games, I think. Where yeah, it's just like by sheer happenstance, freaking millions of people are going to be playing this all the time.
Yeah.
So there's no doubt that you will just have people accepting the counterpoint quests to each other at the same time,
Right.
like, and then just bring them together for
Well,
a really challenging
you could even expand
experience.
that, like that exact same mission, and expand it from just being a one-on-one thing where you can have it be 2 or 3 versus 2 or 3, where it's like
Yeah.
you have somebody driving the coach and you have somebody sitting shotgun, literally sitting shotgun and trying to
Hmm.
defend the carriage that's going on, and you have your team of bandits on horses riding up trying to get, like, you could coordinate some really cool scenes with all that stuff.
Oh, absolutely. And it'd be you could even have it dressed up with in-lore messaging, like the NPCs could simply say,
Yeah.
kind of like FF14, bring some friends, bring anyone you got,
Mm-hmm.
we'll need all the help we can get to take these guys down. And then you just simply invite people, like
Yeah.
go into your friends list and
Ah,
build a party.
that'd be so cool. All right, I think we spent enough time speculating on absolutely knowing nothing about Red Dead Redemption 2.
And
But
quieting my pooch behind the scenes.
yeah, no kidding. But yeah, I'm super excited for that, and I can't wait.
Oh, no doubt, no
All
doubt.
right, I'll pass it over to you now.
Sure, sure. Well, in the spirit of game releases and how they're talked about and dressed about, kind of following on our Persona conversation, I have some news to share, and that's that Final Fantasy 15 is on store shelves
Oh
officially
yeah,
in Peru.
Peru. Okay.
I wanted to, I wanted to put that note in there for people who are listening and went, what?
Yeah.
And shut off the podcast and run to their recent store. No, Final Fantasy 15 has broken street date in a few places. That's how we describe it. When a gray retailer or a mom and pop retailer has the game and they just decide to sell it early, whether it's because people ask like, "Hey, do you have this behind closed doors?" And they're like, "Yeah, we do. Here it is." But yeah, this came out on NeoGAF late last week, or I guess just a couple days ago. And in Peru, it's out on store shelves seemingly everywhere. Like there are just photos taken from multiple stores of the game being on the shelf in plastic wrap. People have unboxed it. They've got unboxing videos. There are starting to be spoiler videos on YouTube. So take great care with that if you're excited for this game like we are. But yeah, it's created an interesting situation, I guess, because I've been following this conversation, and there are people in the U.S. who are just beside themselves with hype, who want this so badly. And very briefly, it popped up in Texas. There was a seller on eBay who had a ton of copies. There were rumors that a couple shops in New York City got it early, but the details on that are hazy, possibly because people who know about the store don't want word to get out. So it's just created this really weird situation where if anybody has been closely following the game's hype the last couple days, you know that the game is out there and you know that there are people playing it, and that's like really hard to deal with. Even for me, or even for us as an outlet, we don't have our early review copy yet, so we haven't been playing it ourselves, but there are people out there who are. So there's been calls for Square to just lift the veil on this game, like just send the signal out to Amazon, Walmart, GameStop. You know what? You've got it, and people are selling it, so go ahead. The release date is now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I guess my question is, in a case like this, what should Square do? Should they be hunting down streamers and people with the early game to try to request that they stop? Should they simply hire up or staff up temporarily to just battle spoilers and do copyright claims wherever possible? Should they not do any of that because people legitimately purchase their copies and it's not their fault? I guess what's the right thing to do if you're Square Enix in this situation?
I'm not sure the right thing to do. I know Square Enix has a tradition of shutting people down.
Right.
That's
No,
I mean
for
they
sure.
they
That
do
is
that all the time. So I mean I'd imagine that they'd be able to have some modicum of control over shutting down early streams of the game when it's not officially been released. I'm sure they can work with businesses like Twitch to make that happen, like if a game gets flagged. But then how do you know if it's like, I mean that's basically that would only be if somebody tagged that they were playing Final Fantasy 15. Would they know for a fact that they could that Twitch would be able to track that down right away? That's apart from just like combing through every single stream that's out there and trying to figure out if somebody's actually playing it or not. So I don't know how realistic it is to make that effort or waste your time and resources doing that. I think if the game is already in the state where it can be sold and be playable, there could be some patches that are being withheld until launch day that would make the gameplay more smoothly, that aren't necessarily completely ready yet. I don't know. I mean, that would be the only thing, is that if they wanted to wait until you could have the full experience that they're intending, and having it be that day. But I mean, if the game's already out in the ecosystem and people are playing it and they're having fun with it and there aren't really any issues preventing people from having the ability to play it, I would think it would make sense just to push the release date up and say, here you go.
Yeah, I guess it does depend on a few factors that we're not. And here's the frustrating thing for this too is that for the last few days and presumably until November 29th, the Square Enix Twitter account has been counting down the days.
Yeah.
10 days till FF15, 9 days, and then there's usually like a new piece of artwork or some new GIF that's just kind of building that hype. So all of a sudden, as a PR team, it's like your best laid plans have just gone to shit because there are people who are just probably done. There's probably people who have finished the game. There's probably people who have, well, certainly a few reviewers playing it on debug consoles maybe have finished it, but there are real gamers, like real people who are in, like, if not done with the game, like, this is just even surreal to say, but like who are in the final act of the English version. They're seeing what happens in the game. It's just nuts. But so like, do you just abandon that PR social media strategy that you're running with right now? Do you?
Yeah.
I mean, I think you're right, Will. I think it does depend a bit on what they had hoped they'd be able to accomplish between now and day one. And actually, the people who have the early copies have already confirmed there is a 7 gigabyte patch that's already live in some format. I don't know if that's what Square calls the day one patch. This could be like a reviewer's patch, and then there's another day one for later. And actually, on Square's Twitter account, they said, like, hey, we'll have some exciting new features to tell you about on Monday about a day one patch that is currently in the works. So we don't know. Like, maybe the patch they're referencing is that one that has already leaked, or maybe there's yet another in the works. So it's complicated, and I feel like I guess I agree with you on every point. Like, if there is a content upgrade that they feel will actually change and affect people's play experience, then on Monday, when they have said, hey, we're gonna detail all these new features for you in a blog post, they should just come right out and say that. They should be like, we've even seen, they should maybe slyly reference it, we've even seen a few of you have gotten your hands on the copy early. We encourage you to save the experience for everyone, and by the way, here's this thing day one that's worth waiting for. Like, you'll want to play with this improved camera, or this improved sharpening on character models, or hey, we've upped texture detail on grass throughout the entire world. Just make it clear, because like, the average person isn't even following any of this. I would say like 90% of the people who are going to go out and buy Final Fantasy 15 have no idea this is happening. But for the 10% that are like really concerned about this current situation and their opinion of Square Enix could be affected, just come right out and say it. If you're not going to release it early, tell us why day one is worth waiting for.
Yeah, and there's no sensible reason for them to punish the gamers that have legally purchased it, like legitimately purchased it, and have it early. I mean, really what Square should be doing is just just punishing the retailers that broke their embargo.
Yeah, like, that's like, it's just absurd that you can do that when you're a small shop, and frankly, I don't know if Square can even find who these stores are, because how do you know? Like, you can't tell what store it is from a small photo that somebody took of the table of games. And certainly gamers probably aren't going to tell you if you contact them and ask them, because they might feel like they'll get in trouble or something. So it's really unfortunate for a company like this that their game is in, and there's no easy answer either. I mean, you want to put your game in as many stores as possible to just maximize those day one, day two sales. So certainly we should send our games to small shop in Peru, to small shop in Argentina, because it's just, that's 50 sales that we otherwise aren't getting.
Yeah.
And yet your level of control there is so limited.
Yeah, it's just I liked your point talking about the PR team and all the stuff for that, where it's like, that's where it would be most disheartening, is that you so carefully craft your plan for the lead up to this title that people have been waiting almost a decade for,
and now everyone's distracted
Yep,
by
and
the
then it's
fact that
just gone. All of your plans that
yeah,
are just completely gone for that.
rather than looking forward to your new piece of artwork every morning, they're just frantically searching Twitch for 10 minutes of gameplay from somebody's like
Yeah,
not bootleg copy. I was about to say bootleg, but
right.
just somebody's early copy, and you're powerless. You're at Square Enix in your boardroom, your conference room, and you're like, we did everything we could to try to craft this. And I'm not like, there's a tendency to think about PR and marketing as like this nefarious force where it's like the content should be in the hands of the people. Why does
Yeah,
PR get to decide how we perceive it? But to some extent, I think what's cool about the work that they do as a fan is that it can sometimes be fun to get wrapped up in this narrative. Like PR is, besides trying to sell the game, obviously,
hmm
marketing is also, they're also trying to build up sort of a mythic narrative that leads up to release. Like they're trying to craft this feeling of climbing the mountain for fans.
yeah,
And like when you finally reach the top of the mountain and play the game, it's all that more satisfying because they've just helped push you along a little bit. They've helped put it on that pedestal, and we're all in this journey together. So I think part of the work that they do is, I don't know if important is the right word, but just
hmm
it does have meaning beyond just selling copies. To say nothing of the developers, like if I was a art designer or a combat programmer, and like I don't I have to feel this would kind of be gut wrenching to know that people are
Oh, I don't know about that. I mean, I would think if I was, as long as I was confident in the product that was made, I wouldn't care. If I was in, I mean, from a creative standpoint, as somebody working on the game, if I was confident in the product that was made there, I don't think I would really care on the release date as long as it was done.
I would
Unless there was that uh, notion that if there was something that was coming out day one that was needed to make it how you wanted it to be presented, that would be gut wrenching to me, or that would be annoying. Where it's just like you are only seeing part of the completed
yeah.
intent here, and then you're missing out on this big aspect of this, or there's negativity that is being perceived that would not have been there if people had stuck to the hard release date type of thing.
And that's an impression of your art that you'll never get back.
Yeah,
That you'll never be able to. That person, they'll never have the vision of your art that you wanted them to have. I guess I should have clarified the vibe I was going for there is, if there were people who had my game 10 days early, I would be mortified at the risk of them spoiling it for others. Like I would be terrified that somebody would take to Twitter or take to some YouTube channel and just find a way to like ruin the experience of my art for somebody who is waiting until release day.
yeah,
I'd be like nervously waking up every morning just hoping that the ending isn't on YouTube, which it almost certainly will be, by the way. That's how
yeah.
like for somebody to get an RPG 3 days early, like whatever, that's not terribly that doesn't terribly worry me as a fan. But like
hmm
seriously, people have this game in English almost, well, really almost 2 weeks earlier, like 10
Yep.
days early. Like stay away, just be careful
Yeah, every
because
scene
this,
will be on YouTube before
yeah, if
games
the
comes out.
ending isn't on there already, like it will be in a matter of a day or two. Like
Yep.
this is situation, like this is code red for fans and Square Enix in
hmm
some respects. Um,
Yeah.
so just be careful. That's all. I just I'm with you. It sounds like we're on the same vibe here, where it's like Square shouldn't punish consumers,
I
but
still
they
think they're totally in their right to do as much as they can for restricting streams and stuff. If it's like clearly labeled as Final Fantasy 15 stream and it's showing parts of the game that have not been approved by the company to be seen yet,
sure,
I
yeah.
think that's totally fine for them to be in their right to just be like just stopping these things and trying
Oh
to
yeah, I mean it's copyrighted, right? So
right.
they, you know, if it's not out yet, then it's tantamount to like when Half-Life 2 came out and somebody like stole the code from Valve and like put it up on I was going to say
Yeah.
StubHub on like MediaFire or whatever that
Right.
the equivalent was back in the day. So
Yeah.
yeah, I
I just
agree with
think
you
they're
there.
in the delicate situation where the people that are streaming it I don't think should be punished. I think it should just be that they're
Just do
just
whatever you
Square's
can.
just saying like you can't show this. It's
Hmm.
not a mark against your account or anything like this because you bought the game, but we're just not letting you show it.
Yeah,
You're
they
not
need to
getting a
fight.
strike on your account where you're going to be deactivated if you try it again. But it's just like no, we're that kind of stuff. So
They got to fight the fight for fans. That's all.
yeah.
Like the fans need somebody to just do everything they can to protect them for the next 10 days.
So all right.
All
We're
right. Well,
hitting. I
what's
was gonna say
what do
we're
you got
hitting
for
about
me?
an hour, but we can burn through. I got one that's gonna that'll take a long time if I go for that one. I'll do this one because I'm more confident in this, and then it'll be easier to just kind of talk about. So, not much of a surprise. I don't know how much of a conversation we'll pull from this one, but it's still a game that I can't wait for. Is that we know a little bit more about God of War, and they said that it's been in development for 3 years. So it's already been worked on for probably. I mean, it's been work in progress, basically confirming what we thought when we first saw it at E3, that this has been cooking for quite a while, which to me makes me wonder, why are they not showing it at PSX? What's the possible reason for that? Because I mean, they're not withholding, or they're not stopping any of the hype that's already been built or anything like that. They're not going to be burning out the fan base with another trailer by any means. They would just be re-energizing everybody who saw it at E3
Right.
and being more excited. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Why do
Well,
you think they decided not to show anything?
well, for starters, it is crazy to think that I was thinking about God of War like we just saw it yesterday, but no, it's been it has been since E3. I mean, we're talking about 5 months now. So, I think the most likely reason is that they don't have something that polished to show that's different. You know, I think there's a pretty high chance that that segment of gameplay was something. I'm sure there are other parts of the game that are done and playable, but that section is something they polished up to a showcase ready level, something that's worthy of being shown during an E3 press conference, something that looks just technically. I mean, it was crazy. Like that game looked like it could have come out tomorrow. You know, like
Right.
that. What they showed was so polished and so just seemingly done that I think the most likely reason it's not being shown in 2 weeks is because they're knee deep on the game, and the other sections that they could show aren't as polished as that section. So implying that the development isn't as far along as that segment made it seem.
Right. Well, we know that it's been in development for 3 years now, though. So then is that is that something we should be worried about? Is another point. Is that if it's been in
Um,
development for 3 years and another portion of that game that they would be comfortable showing from a story standpoint or from a technical standpoint after 3 years of development, does that mean that the game is seeing some turmoil, or does it mean that the game is just going to be on a scale so big that they haven't been able to dedicate the time to polish a specific point, or don't see it necessary to do that yet?
Depends how much of depends how much of that 3 years was like a pre-production concept stage, which I have a feeling some of it was, maybe at least like a
Oh,
year or
sure,
so.
yeah, yeah.
So like yeah, I don't know that Corey or whoever
Yep, he was
talked
the one
about
who,
this.
yeah.
Was it Corey? I was about to say Balrog
Yeah,
again.
Barlog, yeah.
Barlog, yeah. So if one or more of those years was more of a concepting pre-production stage, then it wouldn't surprise me. I guess it's a little surprising that there isn't like one other section that is maybe up to snuff,
Right.
like just even 5 minutes of gameplay from somewhere else in the game. I guess yeah. So surprising but not worrying is how I would describe myself, because
Hmm.
I don't think that there's any reason to be concerned that it'll be a low quality production. I mean, it's just if the whole game ends up being as polished and as exciting as that E3 demo was,
Yeah.
then there's no I have nothing to be concerned about. But I guess in the context of PSX, yeah, like it's been 5 months. It's a little odd that we're not seeing something else. But maybe they're
Hmm.
taking, the other side of this is maybe they're taking some wisdom away from No Man's Sky. Like, not in the sense of that's a game that,
I
you know,
hope it doesn't take that long to come out
no, only
from its renounce.
only in that the way, like with how disappointing and the saga that game ended up generating for itself of just like broken promises and overblown marketing hype. I think there's probably we're probably going to see for the next year or so a little more of a conservative Sony when it comes to hyping their products. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's no question when you look back at the things that Sean Murray said about the game, the ways that Sony talked about it at conferences, and then what it ended up being. Like it was simply a case of misleading messaging. I guess I'll just sum it up as that. So not that God of War or Horizon or any blockbuster Sony exclusive is going to fall prey to the same thing. I mean, these are teams with hundreds and hundreds of people working on them every day.
Yep.
But they're probably, like, I think understandably so, they're maybe a little more reticent, and this is a good thing. They're maybe probably starting to see the value of staying silent for a while and not talking about the game until it's almost ready to come out, because then you can get people excited and you have a ton of really solid stuff to show them.
Sure.
So maybe that's it more than anything. It's just making a little more of a conservative take. But if that's the case, it does make me wonder what's on deck for PSX, because if there's no new God of War to show.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you've got to think Horizon is Horizon and Detroit, and I guess
Yeah.
Days Gone to some extent, but I'm not convinced that Days Gone is
Totally
any.
forgot that existed.
Yeah, and I don't know that that's probably not any further toward being finished than God of War is, so
Yeah.
maybe they won't talk about that either. But like, Horizon and Detroit are kind of the stars of the show, and those are. I don't know that we have a release date for Detroit, but Horizon
not
at
yet.
least is only a few months off, so. That's probably going to be the thing that they double down on. Have a ton of details, a lot of meaty gameplay, lots of demos for people on site to play. So,
Yeah.
but it does feel a little sparse. Like I wonder, will Persona be there in some fashion? Will they? I mean, Final Fantasy will be out by that time, so that doesn't really need to be talked about at all. And I think it's probably too early for them to start talking about other things like FF7 or Kingdom
Last
Hearts.
Guardian will be out too by then.
Yeah. Oh, geez. Yeah. The Last Guardian was that? Or wait
December
a second.
6th. When is PSX?
PSX. So that The Last Guardian will be out 2 days after PSX.
2 days after. So
PSX
well
will
then,
be weekend, yeah.
that's an interesting one. Then will they show anything about The Last Guardian if it's going to be 2 days?
They'll have. I'll bet
They might do a sizzle reel of some kind. Yeah.
they could have Ueda there to just like talk about the game and reflect on the journey. Like just have the team show up for fans to just be like, at long last, it's finally here. Nick
That's
will do-
long. Sorry guys, it's canceled.
Can you imagine?
Oh
I
my
don't
god.
want to be in that room if that if that goes down. I don't know. I mean, yeah, you have to think they'll ring in The Last Guardian in some fashion. Maybe announce like a Shadow of the Colossus PS4 remaster that everyone gets for free. Look under your seat. There's a code.
That'd be pretty sick.
Yeah, it'd be awesome.
Yeah, but it's
Just something
so
to
then
think.
so. Are we just waiting until the next E3 for more God of War, or do you think it's just going to be just quiet?
Well,
Because I don't see any other indication of when they would talk about it if they're not going to do PSX.
Sony has in recent years gotten into the habit of having like a February showcase for press of some kind. So you usually do get like they kind of cut the wait to E3 in half with like a hey God of War preview, hey Horizon preview from like private builds. So there's a chance of that happening. Detroit would probably fall into that as well.
I'm just
But
trying
there's
to
really
see-
nothing major. Certainly nothing like.
When does Paris Games Week happen? I'm trying to remember the time frame for that. Dates October through November. Okay,
Yeah.
so yeah, October type of time. So yeah, there's nothing. There really isn't anything there, which is it's just interesting that they go kind of counterintuitively to what we were talking about at the beginning, that we like when companies don't talk about their games a lot, but for a game of this size that had that huge of a reaction when it was announced, I would almost feel that Sony Santa Monica would want to be giving more out after
There's
having
PAX.
been so quiet on it for
There
years.
is PAX. There is PAX East, although I don't recall Sony ever having like meaningful presences.
Yeah, see,
in there.
that's the thing is that like if it's not PSX, then I would think it would have to be E3 because there's nothing on that size of a stage for Sony that they would I would feel like it would just be a wasted announcement otherwise.
Mm. Yeah, I'm kind of with you there. It's looking somewhat sparse, but I mean, if you really, we're in kind of a weird time too for PlayStation exclusives, where Uncharted is for the foreseeable future done. Like we
Yeah.
won't ever have like a new Uncharted announcement to hear about. We could get announcements of other things though at PSX, like
The Last of Us
Uncharted.
2.
Yeah, that's definitely a big possibility. Uncharted's story DLC, story expansion.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah, I think both of those are probably likely. You might get them back to back as announcements.
You know what I
But
want? I want another Catherine game.
that's
I have no idea why I thought about that, but that
somewhat
just popped
random.
into my head. Yeah, I have honestly no idea why I thought that, but yeah.
What's funny is that the Persona 5 is built in the Catherine engine. Like it's technically a
Oh,
different
is it?
engine.
I
Yeah,
mean,
it's
it looks
actually
kind of like it, yeah, in a lot of
no, yeah,
ways,
it
but
totally is. It's I remember reading back in the day that the Catherine engine was kind of used as like a prototype for how they wanted Persona 5 to look.
huh,
So it's actually in a different engine than Persona 4, even though they look extremely similar.
nice.
It's just far better at anime 3D faces, that's
Yep,
all.
yep.
It looks phenomenal though, colorful, vibrant. Yeah, I don't think you're going to see Catherine 2
No.
at PSX, but I think we're just in an interesting time where there's a lot of new properties to be excited for.
Yeah.
Horizon Zero Dawn, Detroit, Days Gone. We're in this time where we're kind of waiting for the new identity of PlayStation to form itself, at least when it comes to the games. Like
Hmm.
Uncharted will probably still be the identity for a little bit, but very soon it won't be. So what is the new sort of
That's crazy
the
to think
face?
about.
What is the new face of PlayStation exclusives?
Yeah. I mean, it's almost certainly, well, without having the presence at PSX, I would still feel like it's almost certainly going to transition into God of War 4 if it's going to be as good as it looks. If it's going to have that depth of basically like a Last of Us relationship and
Sure. Yeah.
experience and having that mythos that they're going to be exploring and connecting. Like that's the exciting thing to me is that even though it's such an established franchise and people know Kratos for years, that this is like a completely new Kratos.
Yeah, and they really don't know him, at least not as well as they think they do anymore
Right.
with this new version. Yeah, there's Sucker Punch too. Like
Oh
what
yeah.
what the hell have
Ooh,
they
are we
been
going to see
working on?
Spider-Man? We should be. I hope we see Spider-Man at PSX.
Oh, that's a really good point. It's probably time for that.
Yeah.
Like it's probably well time for that. Oh, that's super cool.
There's all these
Oh
games I
man.
forgot about happening.
So we could theoretically have a PSX with new Sucker Punch title like Infamous sequel or some new property entirely.
Yeah, I hope they move from Infamous. They don't need to do any more with that, as far as I'm
It would
concerned.
be Horizon's big like last chance coming out party before it's released next year.
Yeah.
Freaking Spider-Man, as well as hopefully some other surprises. Oh, The Last of Us. That was the other thing.
Yeah.
Like hopefully like a Last of Us announcement or just a Naughty Dog announcement of some kind. Like I feel like
Hmm.
the deck is so the deck is so stacked with people thinking there's a Last of Us sequel coming, and that could very well be true. But
Yeah.
I just wanna emphasize that I am still in the camp where I'd be totally okay never
Yep.
having that.
Yeah, I don't really want it. I just expect it to kind of
Yeah, it's
be
easy to.
it could be I think Sony wants a Last of Us 2. I don't necessarily think Naughty Dog, like Neil Druckmann or Bruce Straley, want a Last of Us 2.
I get the same vibe. And it's easy to get caught up in like we've been telling. I think a lot of people have been saying this for years that we don't necessarily want this. Like a lot of
Yeah.
gamers are saying, yeah, this was a great story. We don't need a sequel. But then just as soon as you get like within a week of hearing about any new announcement,
Hmm.
it's like, ooh, Last of Us 2, what could that
Yeah.
look like? But I'm still very much in this camp of no, I
They
don't
could
need
they could do a
that.
lot with it. I think it would be most interesting if they did take a route with Ellie being like an adult
Hmm.
and moving forward with her story from there. Like maybe we don't know what happened to Joel, or there's maybe he's still around in some capacity, but not a main focus anymore. But then it transitions more towards her, and then her understanding what happened in that end of the game, and trying to figure out what goes on. I think that would be kind of interesting. But yeah, I still would be more than happy if they didn't do anything with The Last of Us.
Rather than The Last of Us 2, maybe they should call it like I think it'd be really cool because we don't have a good analog for this in games, but there are some movie franchises where every movie or book franchises probably more commonly, where every book has a different title that's completely unrelated to its previous successor. Like you think
Yeah.
about the Dan Brown books are probably a good example of that, the Da Vinci Code, Inferno, etc. But
Yeah.
also Ender's Game, Speaker for the Dead, like
Mm.
just things that you know are in the same universe because they're
Yeah.
written by the same people or made by the same people. So rather than The Last of Us 2 or The First of Us or
Yeah.
some just kind of
I was gonna say, Last of Us
gimmicky
kind of falls
title,
too closely to being like Final Fantasy and having
yeah,
another number
it's
because it's like
definitely
they're already the last. How can there be more last? It's like,
yeah. So just some other kind of philosophical title that gets you thinking. I think that would go a long way toward making me as a gamer feel like they're not just forcing this for the dollars, like that there's a reason for this being. Uh, I think a
Mhm.
different title would help reinforce that. So,
Yeah. All right.
all right, well, good chat. I'm
Yeah, it
more
was a good
excited for
one.
PS. Good,
Just
more excited for PSX than I was uh, uh,
five
an
minutes
hour
ago.
ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It was a good transition to that. I didn't realize that God of War was going to move into that, but I'm glad it did
No doubt, no
because I
doubt.
totally forgot about. It's like Days Gone. I completely forgot existed.
I'll say the same.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like it's never that I forget that it exists. It's just I never think about it.
Yeah.
It's never in my mind as a PlayStation game to be excited about because, frankly, it had a poor showing. That's not too late for them to redeem themselves. Far from it. But
Right.
man, that was
Ooh, actually, do you think we'll hear anything more on the Order sequel? Because I know they've talked about having a big. They have a huge universe set up that they want to explore.
I don't know. You want to talk about uphill battles to get me excited about something? That's probably that is the prototypical. That's the that's the definition. That's the textbook definition of what I want no part of.
All right. Well, this has been episode 45 of PlayStation Fix. Thank you for joining me on this fine Sunday morning, Kyle.
Oh yeah, no problem at all, sir. Good to be here.
Yeah, so if you want to know more about all the upcoming titles and all the PlayStation news out there, be sure to go to PlayStation Universe, which is at psu.com. You can follow PlayStation Universe at psu.com, all spelled out on Twitter, so psudotcom. You can follow us on Facebook as well. YouTube is PS YouTube. That's where you can also find, if you're not listening to it on there, you can find PlayStation Fix on there. You can also find us on SoundCloud and on iTunes. Please leave us reviews so we know how to make the show better for you guys out there. So yeah, I don't think there's anything else to cover before we sign off. So
Well, cheers. Thanks for listening, guys. Send us your questions if you have any.
yeah, be sure to let us know if you got any questions you want us to, or any topics you want us to talk about. That'd be interesting to
Yeah,
throw in too.
topics.
All right. Well, thanks for listening, guys, and we'll see you all in the next episode. Take care.